Okay, hello and welcome to my new episode for my 10-minute project preview. And today we're going to talk about the Continuum. I think if you see Continuum videos out there today, they are normally quite basic because actually not much information has been shared by the developer. But actually recently the developer did the architect briefing. And from the architect briefing, we're going to take a few additional information that's been provided recently to share with you, which I think a lot of other providers of video out there have not done so already. So I'm trying to settle this within 10 minutes. Okay, so as per usual, let's start this video with an introduction of myself.
Director of Outbound Marketing,
Ryan speaking Malaysia. So my name is Ryan. Nama saya Ryan.
6,000 incoming supply in Johor. This is
I am driving. Thank you for attending today's presentation on Malaysia.
Okay, my name is Ryan Khoo and I'm a Malaysian. I'm a Singapore PR. I have been in Singapore since 2009. I'm a real estate investor. I'm also a real estate agent in Singapore as well as Malaysia. I've done lots of articles, media talks for Property Guru, the H Prop, I think ST. I've done quite a fair bit. I consider myself experienced in real estate investments for Singapore and Malaysia, having been in the industry for over now almost 12, 15 years now. Okay, and today we'll talk about the Continuum, which is an interesting project in many ways because it achieves that not only in terms of the design, the location, right? And if you look at it on the map today, this is in the east, right? In Thiam Siew Avenue. A lot of people say Thiam Siew Avenue where, but basically we say Katong, right? Katong is an easy description. So it's Katong, but pretty near towards Paya Lebar. If you look at the map here, this is the Paya Lebar area, Paya Lebar quarter. So Paya Lebar MRT is not too far away. Generally speaking, there are 3 MRT stations nearby, the Paya Lebar MRT, the Tanjong Katong MRT, and actually also the Dakota MRT, also not too far away, right? But all of them are within 1 to 2 kilometer distance. So, I mean, you can't really walk, but if you take a bus, it's like going to be a short bus stop, 2 stops to get to either of these MRT stations, right? And the unique thing about the Continuum, of course, also is a freehold site, right? Which, of course, in Singapore today, freehold sites are not given by the government. They have to be a private developer that buy up some old freehold site somewhere. And this is how the Continuum has come about, because they got this plot of land. Actually, it's a collection of old bungalows, right? Old freehold bungalows they bought over, and they now convert it into this project called the Continuum. So who's the developer? The developer is Hoi Hub Realty, which is a well-known name in Singapore, and their typical JV partner in Singapore, which is Sunway, which is a big conglomerate from Malaysia. Okay, so let's go into the details, right? And let's show you the one map situation, right? The Google Maps situation. Okay, so so you look at it on the Google Maps situation, right? This is Thiam Siew Avenue. I know it's a road that lots of people are not familiar with. Most people drive down through Tanjong Katong Road or maybe Hague Road, right? But Tanjong Katong Road, I guess, is probably the more popular road here. And it's not too far away from the stretch of shop houses that most people may be aware. There's a very famous Punggol Nasi Lemak, right? Over there. And of course, Tanjong Katong Girls' School, which is quite a popular girls' school. If I drop the human pin on Thiam Siew Avenue, you will actually see that left and right is all bungalow, right? Actually, a lot of it's quite hidden, very old heritage bungalows, right? So you can't really tell much from the road here, but actually the developer bought the left and the right, you know. That means the left-hand side and the right-hand side plots of land are bought for this project. Then you say, Ryan, then what happens to Thiam Siew Avenue? Thiam Siew Avenue will remain as a private road, okay, and the developer going to widen this road a bit, put some nice trees and landscaping, so it's going to be a private road. Then you say, Ryan, then what do you mean? One side here, one side here, then how do you become one condo if you don't amalgamate this road? Well, they can. Actually, they're going to build a private overhead pedestrian bridge here. That's what? Yeah, that's correct. A private overhead pedestrian bridge to link the so-called the north side and the south side of this project into one project, right? So that's quite unique. I think whole of Singapore, I don't think, as far as I know, there's no project in Singapore that has this kind of feature, private overhead pedestrian bridge, because this road will still be open to public, okay? So if you see where we are, on one hand, Tanjong Katong Road, right? Let me see, am I going to Tanjong Katong Road? Oh no, this is the Hague Road direction. So you see Hague Road direction, right? If you go up here, it's a very popular Hague Market, right, which is next to opposite Geylang Serai, right, not far away, and then after the Kinex Mall. If you go this direction, you basically head towards the deeper Katong area, right? If you go the other side of Thiam Siew Avenue, as I mentioned, is it's quite a long road also, right? The site is quite big, yeah. This site is about 240,000 square feet. That's quite a large site, right? In Singapore, that's almost equivalent to like 2 condos, right? So if you go to the other end of Thiam Siew Avenue, you basically arrive at Tanjong Katong Road. Some of you may be quite familiar with this stretch. Like I said, down here is the shophouse area of Punggol Nasi Lemak and all that. You turn right, you basically head towards the Dakota, right? And the old airport hawker center, right? And up here there's these two very famous, for those of you who drive, right? I think this Shell station and Esso station is something most people are quite familiar if you've driven along Tanjong Katong district. Of course, up there is Paya Lebar Central. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, within three MRT stations are pretty much nearby, right? Dakota MRT here, about 1 kilometer plus away. The upcoming Tanjong Katong MRT down here from the East Coast line, and the green line, East-West line, is the Paya Lebar MRT is up here, right? All within a couple of bus stops to drive, okay? So let's go back to my slides. Okay, I'll talk about other amenities nearby, but I guess if you're already watching this video, you're probably pretty familiar with the Katong area, right? So I'm not going to repeat in too much detail, right? We'll talk about schools, right? But basically, you talk about MRT, those 3 MRTs, right, that I mentioned earlier, Dakota, Paya Lebar MRT, and Tanjong Katong MRT. If you talk about shopping malls, I think Kinex is probably the nearest, right? And if you go up, of course, it's Paya Lebar, PLQ, right? And if you go down towards Katong, of course, there's I-12 Katong, which is probably the nearest mall towards Katong side. So this is actually a Katong address. And like I said, most importantly, it's freehold, right? But let's talk about the project specs itself, right? Which I think is the key thing, right? This is the Continuum logo. It's sort of like a circle thing. Okay, so important key points, right, which I think is summarized in this slide about the uniqueness of this project. A lot of developers like to say their project unique, but when it comes to unique, I mean, like I said, it's a lot of same old things, right? But this project, the Continuum, I think really has some unique factors, all right? So number one is the site, the site size, right? 269,000, almost 270,000 square feet. That's very big, yeah. I mean, I think it's the largest East freehold launch this year. I think in the recent years also, there's nothing been this size, this big, right? Like I said, in many cases, you can even build 2 condo projects, right, in Singapore, 2 typical condo size projects in Singapore. So 269,000 square feet is very big. So as a buyer, as an owner, you enjoy a lot of space, right? You buy a condo, even if you buy a 1-bedroom, you can enjoy the whole 269,000 square feet facilities and all the amenities in that large site. That's one of the big positives of buying a large project. Of course, large projects also have other benefits. For example, they typically tend to have more transactions, so that allow your property price to appreciate faster, right? That's another benefit of buying a large project. Small projects typically, because they're too small, like anything under 100 units normally have this problem. And in the East, there's a lot of that, right? Those single block condo in the East, because they're too small, there are not many transactions, and because of that, your price very hard to move up. Or even move down, right? So that's the reason why people prefer large projects, not only to enjoy the large facilities and size of the project, but also because the number of transactions allow the property price to move up faster. Okay, so the other things I mentioned just now, landmark private overhead bridge. Yeah, this is something that we want to see. Actually, as of the architect briefing, we have not seen any image or perspective of this. We don't know how actually it looks like right now. I hope to do another video on this, maybe later this month, or maybe when the project launches, when we do have a nice image of how this thing looks. But as of now, as I said, whole Singapore, I don't think this exists. This is a pretty unique thing in Singapore today. I think a lot of people will talk about this. 2 sky garden, yeah. So some projects have 1 sky garden. You know, some, and I think very few projects, as far as I know, don't have 2 sky garden. Okay, so this project has 2 sky gardens because there's a north side and a south side connected by this landmark bridge, as I mentioned earlier. So there's 2 sides, right? Because Thiam Siew Avenue in the middle, right? The Thiam Siew Avenue Road, public road in the middle. So 1 north side, 1 south side, Thiam Siew Avenue, linked by an overhead bridge. Then on top, you have 2 different sky gardens on both sides. Okay, so 2 sky gardens, also quite unique. two collection of unit types. I think so far Sunway and Hoi Hub have done this approach, right? Even in their current other project, Terra Hill, they have one prestige collection and one signature collection. So they have two different classes. I think it's a smart thing to do because you always have a buyer category in Singapore today, very high net worth, who are willing to pay a bit more for premium specs. So that goes into the signature collection. Sorry, the prestige collection, right? And yeah. And then another unique thing at the bottom here, which I think is the conserved Thiam Siew house. So as I mentioned, this site actually today consists of a number of freehold old bungalows, right? So they're going to keep one, right? And this is going to be the new Thiam Siew house, which they're going to conserve and make into the private clubhouse for this project. Okay, so these are some of the unique factors that we've seen in Continuum, which I think are really unique, actually, if you think about it, right, compared to other condo projects in Singapore today, which are sometimes are very boring, just a few blocks, right, and nothing much to really say about it. But this one really, there's a lot of unique factors involved, right? So this is the perspective, right? But again, it's not 3 towers, actually there's 6. This is just for one half only, because I mentioned you have the north and the south. So actually, in this sense, they are sort of replicated. One north, one more south. So total is 6, not 3. So these are the 2 signature towers, and one of the, which is the prestige, the high-end one. So the prestige tower is meant to be more high-end, with more high-end specs and I think bigger units. While the signature collection, there's these 2 towers connected by this large bridge or sky garden on the rooftop. Okay, so this is how the project looks like, the Continuum, right? So I mean, Thiam Siew Avenue basically is named after Wee Thiam Siew. He's one of the millionaires from the old days. I think built some famous hotel called the Lion City Hotel. Okay, not that famous Singapore history, but this is where the name comes from. So the name will be kept the Thiam Siew Avenue name, right? And that remains a public road, right? But they're going to do stuff to it, right? We shall talk about it later. So large site, 269,000 square feet. Now, freehold. Now take note of the number of towers. So total is 6, 17 stories and 18 stories. 1 conservation bungalow and 1 overhead bridge, right? Is mentioned here. The overhead bridge linking the north and the south side, 860 units, which is a lot. There are very few projects in Singapore that have 800 plus units. This is one of them, right? Freehold, right? So Continuum is that kind of property that you're going to buy and keep. I think if you ask me, for a generation, a lot of people who are going to buy and look at the Continuum are going to be probably people who want to buy something for value retention because it's freehold, right? And I think Continuum is unique enough and large enough where this value retention will definitely stay. I think price appreciation also definitely quite strong potential here, looking at the way they have designed this unique project, right? And I think take note of the car park, 816 car parks here. So 1-to-1 car park ratio. I think that's something very important, especially for people in the east where I think a lot of people drive. I think that's quite a major thing to achieve here, right? So some views. So this is the view to the west. Now the reason why we talk about views is because you have the sky garden, right? You may say, hey Ryan, actually if you look at it properly, right, the south and the north, there are some high so-called older condos, older freehold, smaller projects, right? Condos which are higher up, which sort of block the view to the south and to the north. But because of the sky garden, which is at the very rooftop, right, you will very likely be able to get the views through the sky garden. So these images here, view to the west, is for you to see from the perspective of the sky garden. So the sky garden can see towards the Singapore CBD, right? If you see to the east, you can see towards Joo Chiat and the Telok Kurau, the low-rise area, right? This area has been low-rise for a long, long time, and so you can get quite nice views towards the east, right? And to the south, there will be some pocket view towards the sea, and the East Coast Park and all that. Okay, so talk about schools. So schools is very important because we always have to cover schools in every presentation. So these are all the schools within 1 kilometer and 2 kilometers. I think the important ones are, of course, Kong Hwa, Tanjong Katong Primary. Actually, all these are pretty good schools, right? Even Tao Nan, all these are important schools that a lot of parents will target to get for primary schools, right? For that important enrollment advantage. So a lot of people will buy just for the school intention, right? And then we talk about the site itself. So you look at the site, there's a north side and a south side, and you can see here, the developer has drawn this private overhead bridge. Right? As I said, this is the only perspective we have right now. We don't have any proper 3D to show how this looks like. I expect it to look a little bit grand because of the unique factor. So this Thiam Siew Avenue remains a private, public road, open to public, right? And they will try to do it nice, add some certain trees and landscaping, right? And you'll notice there's 2 entrances, one to enter to the north, and one here to enter to the south, right? So separate at each end of Thiam Siew Avenue, right? And so 6 blocks. So these ones and this one are the premium prestige block, and these two, 1 and 3, 6 and 8, these are the signature blocks with the sky garden on top. Okay, and this building here, if you see my mouse, this is the restored Thiam Siew residence, right, which is the one of the bungalows they're going to retain. There'll be one more clubhouse here, right at the bottom, right, but basically one clubhouse north, one clubhouse south, right, and the facilities are very large for you to enjoy. The tennis court is tucked at the corner over here. A number of swimming pools, including one 50-meter one, there's one 30-meter, and there's a Mindering pool here for the relaxation pool, right? And what else? Yeah, so pretty large site, as I mentioned, very important. How do you go through each other, right? You do not have to walk out because there will be this private overhead bridge for you to use. Very unique, right? I think, like I said, probably the only one in Singapore to have this kind of thing, right? Now, this one shows you the views from the Sky Garden. So you can see the Sky Garden angles. So the Sky Garden on top, there will be some minor water feature, a small jacuzzi, and also some barbecue pits, right? And of course, areas for you to relax and enjoy the views. I think this is great, right? I think the only other project recently to have this is Amber. The one in Amber Road also have a similar Sky Garden, right? But they only have one. They're right. They are the size of the project only have one Sky Garden. This one will have 2, yeah. Okay. So where you can see north south and also so northwest and south southeast, right? From the way the Sky Gardens are built. Otherwise, you look inside into your own landscape area, right? So this is a photo or image of the Thiam Siew house, which they're going to restore and make nice as a clubhouse for the north side. Right, and yeah, and another important slide that I want to show is the unit mix, right? They have given us this information. So from the 816 units that you can buy, there's a wide range of choices, anything from 1 plus study to 2 bedroom, all the way to 5 bedroom. Okay, so quite a fair amount of choices depending on your budget and what type of property you want to buy. These are all the sizes over here. There are some floor plans given, but we don't have all the floor plans. So I would keep all the floor plans for another video, another day, right? But if you're interested, you can always PM me. I will send you what floor plans I have, but we don't have everything right now, okay? So we'll probably do that in another video for the floor plans, right? But I saw the floor plans. Okay, they're pretty good. Squarish layout, nothing unusual, right? I think that's quite important nowadays when you buy to get squarish layout. So to end this video, why will you buy the Continuum? I try to summarize in key 3 points. Number 1, largest freehold new launch development in the East, right? Everything else in Singapore is quite small. You know, in the East, that typically projects are not that big, right? Or they are 99 years, right? Like the upcoming one in Dunman, Tembusu Grand, all these are 99 years. So if you are those freehold believer for value retention, and I still believe a lot of old money in Singapore still believe in freehold, and that's correct, right? Because freehold always retain the value over a longer period of time. So this is the largest freehold development in the East. I think for people who are trying to right size, right, from maybe older landed property, which they cannot really take care anymore, into something that is managed, as well designed, will retain value over time. People will want to happy to stay there. I think Continuum definitely ticks all these boxes, right, because of the size of the project. Number 2, unique architectural feature, right? And I say this really genuinely, the architectural features are different, which I'm gonna 4 basic points here, right? Number 1, the private overhead pedestrian bridge, right? Which I hope to see as image one day. 2, Sky Garden, and upgrading of the Thiam Siew Avenue. That'll be the most unique public road, right, in the east of Singapore, right? And the restoration of the Thiam Siew house as a private club. So I think very few projects in Singapore, again, can do that. I think offhand in Singapore, I can only think about under 5 projects that have an old restored building as a clubhouse in Singapore. Not many can do this, right? So this will make the Continuum unique, right, in the eyes of many, many owners and the way it's perceived by the public in Singapore, right? And 3rd, design features, which again, we might cover in more detail in another video in the future. So Signature and Prestige Collection. So the Prestige Collection is the high-end one with better specs, of course, more expensive, but that's to cater for the people who are willing to pay for the additional stuff. North-south block facing, so all blocks are basically north-south facing, which is important. Feng Shui, most people want this. Large site, so it gives you a large number of facilities and common area. 1-to-1 car park ratio, very important for people who drive. Another thing that was not mentioned in the earlier slides is that they have done the layouts in a way that's easy to combine rooms. So if you need to combine bedroom 2, bedroom 3, or combine the study with the living area to make it bigger. There are a lot of layout plans which have made this possible because this is not a GLS site, this is not a government GLS site. So if you buy a GLS site in Singapore and it's from government land sale today, government requires some use of precast construction. But because this is not a GLS site, the developer has some flexibility to not use precast, and for that it's easier for you to do room combination, which I think is very important, right? Especially for people, you might buy a bigger unit but you don't need so many rooms, but you want bigger rooms, right? So this project allow that. Smart home features, I think that is quite standard in a lot of new projects today. And another thing that's quite unique, I think, is the dedicated smart storage rooms. Now all layout have this, including the 1+ study, the smaller size in this project. They have given you a smart storage room, right? Depending on the size, it may not be very big, right? It's probably about half the size of a bomb shelter, but I think dedicated storage space is so important today, right? I think a lot of layouts in Singapore, new launch you buy today, will have no storage space at all, right? So like for luggage and things like that, you really have to squeeze in here and there. But this project, they at least give you one room dedicated for storage, okay, which I think excellent idea. And many rooms all in the basement, of course, and they're going to try for green mark, platinum, super low energy target, which I think a lot of developers are trying to do. It helps in a lot of their building savings for utilities later. So these to me are the top 3 reasons to buy the Continuum, right? You may ask me, Ryan, how is the pricing? It will not be cheap. I mean, if you look at what happened to Terra Hill, Terra Hill was doing about 2006 PSF average. I expect it to be about there, maybe even slightly higher, right? But that's the freehold price in Singapore today, right? If you consider that recently there was an en bloc in Mayor Road, which almost paid almost 1,007 for the land alone, I think 2006 is no longer off price, right? This is the market price today, and I know it's a reality. Some people say, wow, really still so expensive. Yeah, but that's the reality of the Singapore property market today. And I think a lot of people who are in a position to buy the Continuum will not really complain because, like I said, it's a transfer of buying a freehold property is always about value retention, right? You want to buy something that will hold its value over time. You don't concern about lease. And the Continuum, the way it's designed, I think it will really hold value well compared to those small freehold condos. Sometimes people buy, why there's always this thing in Singapore, why freehold condos don't perform as well as 99 years? It's because a lot of the freehold condos, because they're not GLS, they buy old building all there, right? They're very small, and because of small site under 100 units, right? That's the reason why they do not perform as well as 99 year. But a freehold site, a large one like this, I think will not have any issue compared to the same size or similar size 99 year site in Singapore. So if I had the money, definitely I'll buy this. You know, this generational wealth kind of thing, generational wealth transfer, right? If I had a lender in Singapore and I don't want to stay in it, I would definitely transfer to something like this, right? Where my children will want to stay and people will want to use, because I know a lot of people like talk about landed property in Singapore and why they're still great for value, but there's also the factor of whether younger generation people appreciate properties like that anymore, right? And the ability to have all these facilities in place in a condo, I think it's a great lifestyle appeal to younger people and your kids in the future. Yeah. So thank you for watching today's video, and if you enjoy our content, do like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And we are also on TikTok, where we make short videos in 1 minute. And if you can also scan this QR code to get onto our mailing list, where we send you emails on important updates on the Singapore and Malaysian property market. And you can also feel free to join us on our Facebook group, Malaysian Investors in Singapore, and my contact numbers are there below. So thank you very much. Hope to see you guys soon again. Bye-bye.